So welcome Sri Ashish to this conversation. Namaskar.
Namaskar, Anil.
Um, we wanted to explore today, the nature of mind. Many people have talked about it for centuries. Both the psychologists, psychiatrists, researchers, people with spiritual bent, they all have talked about what is the nature of mind. And if we ask people with different perspective, different backgrounds, you will get different answers. So I was just wondering, what is your understanding about the mind and nature of mind? When I mean nature of mind, what is it? And in spirituality, if you can explore that from that perspective, that would be great.
So, Ramanna had actually mentioned that the mind per se is nothing but a wondrous power that arises or appears to arise from pure consciousness. So, you and I have had numerous discussions in the past about what reality is, right? And what I've mentioned to you is that, we define it as Satchit Anand, right? Ever existent, ever conscious, ever new bliss. So that base of existence, which there's really nothing going on, there appears to suddenly, come up this power called the mind, which then basically tends to create this illusionary world. So creates the thoughts, creates, from there those thoughts seem to have been appear to be projected into energy, and then there is an outward projection into physical matter. But per se, this power itself is within the consciousness. So there is nothing going on. This mind, when we say, Ramanna always said, and which was also my experience when I began to question, what is this mind? Right? Today, if you ask this question, what is this mind? I ask you, what is this mind? Can you define it? No. Can you hold it? Can you touch it? So usually what people would say is that mind is nothing but a collection of your thoughts, your memories, your emotions, your emotional mind stuff, right? If you put all of these together, you can say, this is the mind. But then the question to ask is, if this is the mind, who does this belong to? Is there some identification to this mind, right? What is the overall mind, and what is then the individual mind, as everybody seems to be researching on or trying to find out. And when you tend to seek an answer into this, when you tend to look into this, you can't find it. So I always tell people that if you can't find the mind, then what are you researching? There is nothing really going on. So really, the mind per se, you can call it nature. It is that power that actually creates, all of this illusion. But really, there is no um, actual entity called the mind that actually has any substantial existence.
But when you say the power that creates this mind, where this power is coming from?
So this power appears to be there within that pure consciousness, within that base of existence. So it's just like when you are in deep meditation, you see that thoughts are arising and disappearing. They appear to be arising and disappearing, but it's an illusion. There's actually not going on. It just appears to be arising and dissolving. So there's what is a good way of explaining this to you? So, you and I have talked about this. Like when you look at water in the desert, right? It seems to be just appears to be there because of the illusion of the way the light is reflecting onto some kind of a substance, but it's not there. Even in the movie, when you have this projector playing, right? When it projects out on the screen, there appears to be something being played, but really there's not really nothing going on there, right? It's just a projection. So um, there is it appears to be there, but it's really in my experience there it's not there. You can actually, when you um, separate reality from what's going on, there is no connection with it, no attachment with it. It's just the power within this pure consciousness.
Right. So it's, for our daily living and kind of being in the world, you do require a mind, and then you have the power of thinking. So you can decide, I'm going to go to New York or I'm going to go to California. So there is a discerning capabilities of the mind that lets you do certain things. So where those thoughts are coming from, that lets you discern what you want to do next. Because if it is an illusion, then there's nothing in your thinking power, right? You cannot then decide it. But we know that we can make a discernment. I can go this way or I can go that way. Where that idea is coming in the mind, where
So
is it coming from?
yeah. So whatever is appearing and disappearing and whatever is playing out based on the period, it's predefined. It's already like a script, as you and I have talked about. Because you have a false identification with the script, because you've identified with the script, you tend to believe that you have the power to discern. And then you tend to believe that because of your discernment, you took a decision X or Y. Whereas the script is already being played. So what is coming first, right? The thought is coming first, or the body is coming first. And this is where a lot of people make the mistake, because they believe that the body has come first, and within the body, because you're born, now the thoughts are coming, so they're going the other way around. Whereas this projection is from inward outward. So the thought came first, then came the energy, then came the outward manifestation in physical appearance. It's not the other way around. So if you are standing here, that means the thought has already been generated from somewhere else. It was not your discernment. There is no individual discernment here. It is a collective script that appears and disappears. And that script is now being played out through energy and through physical manifestation on a backdrop, which is also within the consciousness. So take it from here that there is a consciousness as the base. From the base, something has, in terms of the causal, as we call it, the causal thought has come out. That causal thought now, in order to be appearing in energy form, has now been pushed out into the astral form. And then into the astral form, it has now physically manifested to be played out. As human beings, as animals, as plants, as non-beings, the whole thing. So this whole thing is actually being controlled, or appears to be controlled, by something else. There is no individual control here. There is no individual discernment here. And this is where that confusion is. Because you believe that you're in control, because you believe that you have the power of choice, because you believe you're in your individuality or your ego, you now struggle with all your decisions and the outcomes of those decisions. If you just let it be, if you see it from where I stand, where everything is just being played out, then it's just being played out. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense, but I think it's very difficult for a common man to understand that I'm not able to make a decision that is preordained, it is already scripted. Because I can tell you, I, as the individual, can decide when I will leave my office and when I will reach home. Yes, there could be an accident on the way, there could be delays and all of that, but there is an active decision taking place, and it could, it could be said that the reason you took that decision was because it was preordained, you took that decision. So it's a very circular argument that way, that which kind of, if I go to New York, you can say it was preordained that you're going to go to New York. If I decide to go to California, on the other hand, you might say it was preordained for you to go to California. So how do I reconcile that idea that it is kind of preordained and scripted? What would you tell people who say that, look, I am deciding where to go, not that it was preordained and I'm sort of like just following that script? How do you explain that to someone who actually has not experienced the kind of experience that you have?
So if something new is being introduced, you have to start with faith. Somewhere you have to believe that there is another reality, right? If you choose to believe that what you believe in is what is correct and true, then we don't have a place to go. But if you do agree and you do say, wait, maybe there is this possibility of what I'm telling you from my experience, then the only way to do this is to start living your life from that perspective. And as you tend to live your life from that perspective, which is, realizing what is real and non-real, and you start implementing in this life, you will start to automatically experience the way life actually is and not the way you believe it is. So one of the things that I keep telling people is, life it is what it is. It just is. It's being played out. Now, because of a false identification with your individuality, you tend to believe that the life should be the way you believe it should be. And this is where that subtle difference is. This is where this issue happens. If you just let go of that, and you come to my thing of surrender, if you just let go of this attachment with your I and this belief that you are the one who's driving and not the one who's being driven, you will see that how this actually starts affecting your life, and how this starts becoming part of your life. And you will, if you continue to do this, if you continue to follow this, eventually I guarantee you will experience it the way I've experienced it. And this is the reality.
Yeah. Now, changing subject a little bit. So many people have this challenge of kind of, they want to be in silence. They want to remain in a calm and happy mode. And many people tell them to do meditation, sit in silence, just quietly and kind of let go everything, all the thoughts that are coming. They continue to do that for many years, but still, once they get out of that meditation practice, they go in their offices, they go to their jobs, and all the anxiety, all the stress, the anger, all those things actually come. So for the brief moment that you had that calm and relaxed peace of mind and happy state of mind just goes away. What do you tell people to practice such that it remains permanent, whatever they have experienced in their meditation? What is it that they could do so that even if there are challenges at job and in business, they still feel that relaxed and calm, and peaceful mind?
So what worked for me, I had the same issues as I was starting on this practice of mine. uh, it was the same issues. I was angry, I was aggressive, I had emotional ups and downs, I had stress, anxiety. But as I started to practice self-inquiry, which was Atma Vichar, which is what Ramanna's practice was, keep asking the question constantly with every thought or with every action, who is this, or with every emotion, who is this thought, action, or emotion is coming to? And then asking, questioning, the answer itself, because the answer comes, it's coming to me or I. Then asking the question, who is this I? And trying to seek that I, because that I itself does not, does not have any substantial existence. So what I found was, by doing that practice, initially, I would have the same issue. I would do it, get into my daily routine, and then find that I was back into that. But the more and more I did it, the more and more I found that automatically those, the mind tend to not go out, or the identification with those thoughts and emotions and actions began to become less and less. So the attachment to those actions or to those thoughts became less and less. So what happened is, as the thoughts started to come and my attachment was not there, I was able to discern, or I was able to basically realize that these were not mine. These were not something that were attributed to me. So if it was not attributed to me, then it just was. It was just coming and going. So these, by constantly repeating and doing this, you will find that eventually it becomes an automatic process. So even though you would first sit, maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes during the start of your day, but as you go on your day, you will find that this thing is going on at the back of your head. And eventually you will find that the identifier, the issue of identification, so the identifier or the questioner eventually will dissolve. And at that point, it doesn't matter. Then at that point, you're just in the world, not off the world, which is often my comment to you.
Yeah, so I think this self-inquiry, taught by Maharshi Ramana is quite popular among spiritual seekers, right? But if you ask many people about this, even those who have been practicing for many years, they will say that even after 15, 20, 30 years, they have not been able to kind of, whatever you call that self-realization experience that they have had. So, so maybe I think, what you're suggesting, it would actually help people detach themselves from the thoughts and action they're engaged in. But does this lead to something more than a detachment and what many people say is self-realization and a state of happiness that is permanent, that remains with them forever? Have you seen that kind of composure and happiness through this self-inquiry? And those who do not, what would you tell them what they should do, even though, and you can read many accounts of that. People, first of all, they have difficulty in understanding what self-inquiry is. And you have explained it very well, but then the question becomes, do they reach that level of self-realization through this practice of self-inquiry? Or if they're not, then why not? What they could do differently
So
to get that state?
most people tend to make the mistake on getting stuck on the questions. And eventually, self inquiry is a method of dissolving the questioner. So the focus should always be on the questioner, the experiencer, the identifier. That is what needs to dissolve. Because if you keep focus on the events or the actions or the emotions, then you will keep asking the question, but not seek the answer to the main thing, which is, who is it this is actually coming to? Does this thing even exist? Because till that does not dissolve, the attachment to everything that is going on will not dissolve. If the question does not dissolve, then the questions will keep arising. They will constantly arise perpetually. So this is one mistake that I found in a lot of people, that they actually get identified and they misunderstand what Ramana was trying to say. Here, the goal is to focus on that questioner that is asking the question. And eventually what happens is the questioner will eventually dissolve itself. So Ramana had given a very good analogy where he had said that when you are having a fire stick and you're burning a fire, eventually what you do once you lit the fire, you throw that stick into the fire. And hence that also basically dissolves with, with the body that you're burning or with the fire that is burning. The same way, eventually, if you constantly do this with every thought, it will dissolve. Now, what happens is most people tend to become impatient. They are looking for a quick fix. They do it maybe a week, maybe they do it 10 days, maybe they do it 6 months, maybe they do it 12 years, maybe they do it 10 years. But this is something that you have to have commitment towards. This is something that you have to continue. And this is where most masters have said you need patience and you need faith. But I am a guarantor, and I am somebody who has gone through the process, who constantly did this all the time. And I have experienced what Ramanna had said that I would experience, which is the base of existence, which is Shunya. So I would tell people that do not be disheartened, continue the practice, and eventually you will get there. Because you must understand what is the end goal here. The end goal is not something new to be found. So you will realize your true nature. This is not something that you are going to let something hit. It's something new that you will find. So you might lose your way, but you will not find it because no. You will eventually realize your true nature because that nature is what is there. It's not something new is going to come out. So when you have this understanding that there is no new thing to find, it's just to remove everything else that you believe that you've identified in. What remains is your true nature. So you will get there. With faith and patience, you will get there. There's nowhere else to go. So I always tell people realization eventually is to realize that there is nothing to realize. Because when you wake up from your dream, you realize that you had not gone anywhere or not experienced anything. Neither had you identified with anything. This was all just false, just make believe. So at some given point, you will get there. You just have to be patient and you have to be committed. You have to have the intent, the high intent to wake up.
Now, when you say, dissolution of the questionnaire, somebody who's asking these questions, what it feels like, what is it, what sensation, what feelings, what experience do you have when you start to say that my identity is dissolved and what remains is the true nature, as you just said, of Satchit Anand. But what is it? So you're asking these, you're doing self-inquiry, you're asking questions, and then you say who these questions are coming to, and then you will not find that person. And then eventually the promise is that it will dissolve. But give us a little bit tangible assessment of what the dissolution of the I or the individual feel like, or how do you sense it? How do you feel it? What happens in your mind when that happens, when that dissolution happens?
So there is what happens is I think we've covered this in our book as well, where I say that cessation of desires, there is no desires, elimination of all thoughts, and enlightenment or illumination all happen at the same time. It's like you enter a dark room and you can't see anything. And you may tend to bang into things and you may do things. But the moment you switch on light, you can see everything clearly. So this is the same way that this happens. So what you experience here is just the feeling that you exist and nothing else. There is no senses. There are no thoughts. There is no sense of the body. But you're aware that you exist. And the nature of that existence is undisturbed, or it's just pure peace because there is no disturbance, right? So even if we take the topic of the mind and you say, okay, we take the mind as the subset, would be equal to God, because you can say God, mind, Brahman, energy, whatever you want to call it. It's all one and the same thing. But if we take this mind as the big subset, then the nature of this mind would be where it is at complete equilibrium. There is no distortion or disturbance in this mind. So Buddha had also said that there is a state of being which is right in the middle. So as long as you are abiding in that middle path and you are not fluctuating with what is happening, emotionally or within these thoughts, then that equilibrium is basically what is the base of existence. So whatever is appearing and disappearing seems to be happening there, but this thing is absolutely in equilibrium. So when I experienced it, it was just, oh, it was just awareness, nothing else, that I existed, and there was nothing else. But what that leaves you with is pure joy, that undisturbed peace, because there's nothing going on, basically translates as, as pure joy. So when you come out of this, there is a really high intense sensation within the body of just pure elation. There's no way to explain it, but except that it's pure elation. So that's what you experience. And when you abide in this awareness 24/7, then your life is pure joyous, and nothing else tends to disturb you internally. Your outward circumstances and your outward events don't change because that is already prescripted. But what happens is that your perception or your perspective at looking at those events and circumstances is now completely changed. So you are now not attached to the outward circumstances or events. So they really do not bother you because they actually are not yours in the first place.
But do you have like you are in that realm, and then there is another world where you have the senses, the thoughts, the action, you're moving around, you are eating, you're walking, you're going to a movie, but you are always in that realm where you see yourself separate from the rest. Is that kind of the sensation you have? Or is it like, you kind of forget your true nature and you just get involved in the world, in the daily living, whatever you do? So how, once you have reached that state, what is that kind of all the time that you're part of this, but you're not actually part of this because your feelings are very different. For example, if I'm actually involved in some work, I'm just involved. I'm deeply engrossed in that work. Nothing actually, nothing actually comes to mind. I'm just focused on that. As soon as they actually switch to something else, I'm engrossed in that part. But what you're saying, it seems like, is that you are actually in a different realm, in a different consciousness, and then all these things that are happening in the world are kind of, detached. It's kind of a separate world. You're seeing it, you're doing it, but you're not attached to it physically or kind of, through your thoughts and feelings. Is this the right way of characterizing it, or there's something different you'd like to suggest to us?
So it's not as if you have um, detached from the body. So it's not that there is, um, something here and then there's something here. What's happened is, at least in my experience, what the Shastras and our scriptures have said is that you have, when you're in the manifested form, like when you are back in realizing that you're in your body and you have your still senses going on, because you're still in the body, you're here, you're aware of your body, your senses are on. But at that point, you tend to feel or experience oneness, which is one with everything. And when you are in your unmanifested form, which is what I had experienced as shunyata, then you're free from everything. So the free from everything is where you're just aware of your existence, nothing else. The one with everything experience that I have is that the mind, while engaged in daily activity, is fully involved, but is not attached. So it's aware. It's no more that even if I in the early days, when this was not happening, when I was involved, like as you said, in an activity, I had no other thing at the back of my mind going on that, look, while I'm doing this with complete understanding and awareness that this action or activity or circumstance has got nothing to do with me. It is not real. It is just an illusionary, make believe play of ideas. I did not have that at that time, but now I do. So every action, every circumstance, every event is done with that understanding now, not with the other one. So I'm still fully involved, I'm fully engrossed, I am fully engaged, but I am not entangled, nor am I attached to either the action or to the emotion or to the outcome of that action.
Is it possible that we can convince ourselves that this is what it is? Because the mind plays tricks on us. So if I actually start to say every day that everything is an illusion and I am actually, separate from this worldly manifestations, and if I do this, 1,000 days, I will start to believe in that, and that's how I will see the whole world. Or is it something internally that happens where you just experience it? It's not because you did the self-inquiry or you did the meditation. It just happens that you are engaged, but you actually are kind of separate from it because you're not identifying with the activities or with or engaging with your thoughts. Because I would say that I think some might argue that you might convince yourself of this if you continue to, it's a kind of a, self-fulfilling prophecy that could also happen. So I'm just trying to understand. This is you have kind of evolved over time. Initially, you were saying that it did not happen, but now, even though you're engaged in activity, internally you're not actually associated with it. That's the stage you have come to. Correct, right?
That is correct.
And the reason it has happened is because you have kind of been practicing self-inquiry and thinking about this for some time now.
Yeah, it's now been almost, I started in 2020, so it's almost been 3 years. I used to do Kriya Yoga before that. So in the middle, what I had done is I had combined Kriya Yoga with self-inquiry. And then Ramanna had said about surrender. So I now practice all three. Means I practice surrender unconditionally. I let go, nothing remains. Like any event or any emotion that even triggers or seldomly triggers, I don't even analyze it. I don't, try to figure it out or try to, attach anything to it. It's just an event. It happened, whatever happened, and you move on. So you're correct. So you're right that you could train your mind to do that. But that's exactly what it is. When you're asking this question, you are now training your mind or this illusionary entity to go back from where it had appeared. So if you can do this, you will be able to realize it. You will be able to realize the benefits of it. But nobody tends to be able to train their mind to start non-attachment. And this is where people tend to have a lot of intellectual conversations, but don't tend to do it. In one way, who am I is nothing but an exercise to train your mind to eventually realize who is this, trying to find itself, and then getting back into its source. It may take 1,000 days, it may take 10 years, it may take 15 years, it may take 25 years. So I tell people, try that exercise and see what happens.
But I think we as mere mortals, I think we want results now. I mean, I want to solve my anxiety problems, my stress problems, my anger problems, my ego problems tomorrow, right? And so tell us something practical, that we can use and can, improve our behavior and improve our, well-being through this method, because that's what I think a lot of people are interested in. What is the benefit that I can get tomorrow through this practice? Am I more calmer, peaceful when people actually, kind of insulting me and I don't get upset? How this will happen? What we could do?
So everything that you start new, right? Even if you take, these weight, um, new diets or new exercises, right? When you start something new, it's not a miracle. It doesn't happen that one day you do the diet and suddenly you lose all your weight, or you go to the gym and you lift one day some weights and suddenly you've got a six pack or your biceps. So everything requires patience, it requires commitment, and it requires to be done. But what I can tell you is that as you do this, you will tend to see tangible results. And one of the things that people don't also do is what we call in the scriptures, swadhyay. Every night, if you sit before going to bed and have an impartial introspection of yourself. And when I say impartial introspection, that you tend to basically detach yourself and see, okay, today, did I do this right? Did I not do this right? How could I have done more inquiry? What could I have done? You will see that this gradual change will start happening. And to some people, it may happen in a week. To some people, 2 weeks. Some people, 30 days. But you have to continue to do this. For me now, I've been at this for over now 8 years. And, some may say, hey, 8 years is very quick because there might be somebody doing it for 40 years. But I did this constantly. I did this regular. And I'm here to tell you that if you do this, it will result. You will get to where you need to be. And you're right. If you start slowly, you will start seeing gradual tangible results. You will become calmer. You may, maybe 10 out of 10, when you started out, if somebody said something to you, you would take it personally. As you go down this path, maybe now you do it 8 out of 10. Maybe 2 times you will not get affected. Then it becomes 6 out of 10. Then maybe 5 out of 10. But don't worry about the 5 that you got affected with. Focus on the 5 that actually you did not and hold on to that. See what at that point had happened. How had you, controlled that and how you had come out of that. So what I tell people is slow down. Means you are now so entangled in gross. You have to take a step back and you have to look at your life. So that's why Swadhyay is very important, that you need to start introspecting. So if you recall that, there is a threefold path that I've created. The first itself is one is understanding. Second is contemplation, and basically contemplating on that understanding. So all of these steps that I'm talking about come as the part one, is to first basically see what's happening in your life. Where are you doing? So start having a conscious living. Don't live just unconsciously. Today, most people on the planet are living unconsciously. They're all following the rat race. They're just going about the daily routine of their business or their life or their household life or whatever it is. But nobody's actually stopping and becoming consciously living. So what this will also do is start making you live consciously, start making you question things, start making you looking at things with a new perspective. Start with that. That itself will bring a lot of calmness and peace with it.
Very right. I think, that's, you're absolutely right. I think, people, if we do, as you suggest, the self and introspection every day and live a conscious life, I think the whole thing will change for them. They will discover themselves what is happening and what is not happening from a third person's perspective, right? They can see their own life, what is good, what is bad, and what actually gives them the calmness and peacefulness. So I think this threefold path that you recommend, I think, I will tell the audience, I think that's a very, very powerful method, because it follows logically. It tells you to understand what the real substance is, what the reality is, and then the contemplation that you just talked about. That itself will actually help people quite a bit. And then, with God's grace, at some point they will experience what you have experienced. And that, I believe, is kind of your message to all of us. Um, and so I certainly believe that that is a very good method for anyone who is interested on this path. Yeah. One last question before we go, uh, coming back to this nature of mind, right? There are so many thoughts that keep coming to us from all aspects when you sit down in one place. How do you reduce those thoughts coming? And if you don't want to stop them, how you reduce them? Meaning, what is the method that you use so you're not bombarded with all these thoughts? You're trying to do the meditation, and then you're thinking all about your things that happened, for the last 24 hours. All kinds of random thoughts coming, staying there for a couple seconds, moving on. What do you suggest to people that what is this nature of mind that you haven't understood that could help us with reduction of those thoughts, or kind of, make them a little bit more calmer?
So when you understand the nature of the thought, when you in deep meditation, when you slow down the process, you will realize that each thought that is coming is actually not continuous. It's actually a thought and a blank, and a thought and a blank. So it's exactly like a movie reel, because in a movie reel you have a picture, then you have a blank, you have a picture. And because these thoughts are coming so fast, because it's running so fast, it appears that these are continuously happening. Now, I tell people that the job profile of the mind is to create thoughts, is to keep you entangled. That is the job profile. So, but these thoughts are not yours. They are just coming, going. So where you need to become aware of, even if you start doing a little bit of meditation, is to focus on those blanks, because those blanks are actually your true nature. And you will find that the more you focus on the blank rather than the thought, you will find that these blanks will start becoming more and more, and the thoughts will start becoming less and less. So eventually, only the blank will remain. So these are, what I tell people is, don't get attached or identified with the thoughts. If you just, as you sit, let them come and go. Don't get entangled in them. If a thought, even if a bad thought comes, just let it go, because the thought will not stay. The thought's job is to come and disappear, appear and disappear. If you become entangled with it, now the mind has got you entangled, because that thought is already gone. You have now started a chain reaction of more things to happen. If you just let it be, then it will just appear and disappear. It will appear and disappear. And that is where you just need to be. So there is a sage, Tilopa, basically was a Buddha in the 900 ADs. And he had actually used to teach what he used to call Mahamudra. It's part of Buddhism, a different, not the Mahayana, but the Vajrayana Buddhism. And he called this entire reality as nature of the mind. But he basically said there are 6 steps to it. The first one is let go of what has happened. Let go of the past. Don't keep thinking about it, or don't be, even if those thoughts of the past are coming, don't have to engage with them. The second is let go of what is to come. That is, let go of the future. So if you constantly thoughts come about, worries or stress about what will happen now to me, what will happen to my family, what will happen to my business, what will happen in the future, don't let them come and go. Don't get entangled in those. The third thing he says, let go of what is happening now. Whatever is happening now, again, thoughts are coming. So when we started this conversation, I said the beginning point is a thought. From there, something energy happens, and from there, physical manifestation happens on the screen. Same way, if you, whatever the present is also happening, is starting from a thought. Again, just let it go. Let it. So, fifth thing is if something has happened, an event has happened, usually you tend to start analyzing. So he says, don't analyze anything. Don't have to again engage with this. And the last thing he says is don't make anything happen. Don't have to do anything to make anything happen, because these are all related to the thought. These are all things that basically get you entangled in what is appearing and disappearing. The last thing he says is just rest naturally. So what that means is that you let go of everything and you just rest. You just watch things come and go. Things come and go. What will happen eventually is that this does not mean that you just sit in a room and you just watch things come and go. This actually becomes your true nature. This is your true nature. So even in your daily life, whatever you're doing, you now become non-attached to everything. You're letting go of everything. So you're just, whatever is happening. Whatever your body is meant to do to play whatever the role you want to play, it's just happening. You're not either attached to it, you're not either analyzing it, you're not making anything happen, you're not thinking about it, you're not identifying with it. Just are the way you're supposed to be. So this way, you tend to enjoy life for what it's actually meant to be, which is, as I tell people, for education and entertainment purpose only, not the way your ego or your I has made it to believe it should be.
Thank you so much, Sri Ashish. I think this has been a very illuminating session. I'm sure I think our audience will enjoy this and look forward to another discussion with you. I have more questions in my mind that I want to explore, and how we reconcile our worldly life with what you are teaching in your spiritual life. So, and we'd like to know more about it in our next session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.